Hey guys, I'm Jordan and you're watching Fixbook. After watching this video, your car problems stand about as much a chance as this laptop does against my hot lead. Now, make sure you stay tuned so you can see what happened to the laptop at the end of this video. And as always, don't forget to subscribe, like, and leave a comment down below. Hey guys, so today I'm going to be showing you how to replace those rear rotors and brake pads on your Cheverolet Tahoe. Okay guys, and the tools you'll need for today's project are the following. You'll want a long 3/8 ratchet with an extension, a 12mm socket, a 18mm socket. You'll want a pair of channel locks, or really a pair of vice grips will work better. You'll also want a 7/8 socket with a breaker bar, or one of those crossbars will work as well. You'll also want a flathead screwdriver, a C-clamp, and a seize and brake grease are also going to help you out in this project. So with all that said, we'll go ahead and begin today's project. Okay guys, and the first thing we want to do here is go ahead and lift up your car. The first place I'm going to show you, you see my jack sitting right here, but you're actually going to want to place your jack stand something like right there, because I'm going to show you how to do it where you can lift up both sides and set both jack stands in the similar place here and on the other side there. So remember, that's going to be your jack stand place, not your jack place. I'm just doing it differently here because it's a pretty big car, and I do have a 3-ton jack, but I just don't want to put all that stress on the jack. And you can set up your jack actually right there below that rear differential. Just lift up on there, and you should be able to lift both wheels up off the ground. And then, like I said before, your jack stands will just go there and there on that spot over there. So that's how you'll get your car lifted up. And before you lift your car up, make sure you take that cap off and break your lug nuts loose. Okay guys, and like I was saying just a second ago, the first thing you'll want to do is we'll remove this cap, and then, and again, this is before we actually lift the car up, and what you're going to do is you'll use a crossbar or a 7/8 drive socket and a breaker bar. So we're going to take these off, and then we'll loosen up those lug nuts, so once you lift up the car, you'll actually be able to remove your lug nuts. And once you've got them all loosened up, your cap will just pop off like that. We'll set them off to the ground. And again, you're going to go ahead and break these off. Just break them loose and then lift up your car. I'm going to go ahead and remove all my lug nuts, and then I'll take this wheel off, and then we'll take a look at our rear brakes. And then I'm just going to take all these guys off, and I'm going to set them right there in the center of my cap. That kind of helps me keep them organized there. And then I'll get this wheel off. Okay guys, and the next thing we got to tackle here is we got to loosen up our 2 caliper bolts. We got 12mm bolts, and then once we do that, I'll go ahead and do that. Once we do that, we're going to need to go ahead and kind of get this caliper loosened up a little bit, because we got pistons inside, and we got to make sure we get him loosened up so we can actually remove him once we get our 2 caliper bolts off. So break them loose here, and got the bolt up there. And there, I got both my bolts out. And now, I'll take this flathead screwdriver I got. I'm going to kind of reach in here, and we're going to find a place to pry so we can kind of help compress these pistons back a little bit. And that should be able to help us get them off here. And that should be loose enough. Let's see what we got here. And reach in and just kind of pry off there. And there we go. We just about got them off. And now we'll set our guy off here to the side. And look at that. There's our brake pads, which are pretty worn. They could stand to be replaced. So that's how we're going to go about getting those brake pads off. And these guys, oftentimes they will fall out. You just kind of set them back in there. They just set right back in just like that. And here in just a second, I'll show you the next thing you're going to want to do. Okay guys, and the next thing we're going to do here is we're going to take a look at this rotor. I'm going to tell you a little bit about what you need to know. So just sit down and listen here what I got to say about rotors and when you want to replace them and that sort of thing. So because a lot of times people will just replace them or they won't replace them. So this will tell you kind of what you need to know about doing your rotors here. Alright, we have now reached the most important segment of this video. Please do not skip over this part of the video. It's important for you to hear what I've got to say about rotors, and it's important to assure that after you've done your brake repair, your car will be safe to drive. So we've got a few different options here when it comes to dealing with your rotors. You can either replace your rotor, have your rotor resurfaced, or you can keep and use your current rotor as is. Now, first I'm going to go over replacing the rotor. It is an absolute must to replace the rotor if its measurement is below the minimum thickness threshold to ensure your car is safe to drive. What I'm going to describe here in just a second, whether you want or don't want to replace the rotor, that's up to you. Affordability and comfort is at hand. But if it is below the minimum thickness threshold, there's no other way about it. You must replace the rotor. Okay, so now that we understand that, and here in just a second I'll show you how to measure it and be able to tell whether it's below the threshold or not. But now we're going to talk about turning your rotors. Now, there's a couple reasons you could turn your rotor, and that's to keep your present rotor, and you can pay about $10 to Napa or O'Reilly where they have a brake lathe and they will turn your rotor for you. It's a cheaper option than buying a whole new rotor. And the reason you'd want to do that is if you've wore your brake pads down metal to metal and the metal pad is wedged in grooves there and it's all torn up, then you don't want to put new pads on that torn up surface with your old rotor. So you'd want to have your rotor resurfaced, and that's to ensure longevity for your new brake pads. The other reason to have your rotors resurfaced at a parts store is if you're having vibration problems with your rotors. That is, if you're driving down the highway and you apply the brake pedal and you feel your brake pedal vibrating. If you don't like that, that would be a good reason to have your rotors turned. But if you're really particular, just keep in mind that when the rotors are thinner, they're more likely to develop that warpage problem, because what happens is you'll be driving down the road, you'll run through a big puddle of water and the water will splash on the hot rotor and it'll warp the rotor. The thicker the rotor is, or the newer the rotor is, it's going to be less likely to develop this problem. So resurfacing the rotor, if you have that problem, will fix the problem, but it'll come back faster. So if you have the extra money and you really don't want that problem, you can go ahead and just throw money at it and just get a new rotor every time. But if you want to see the problem go away and risk it coming back or not, it may or may not come back, you can go ahead and turn it and get out of the situation cheaper and be more comfortable. Now the last option is to just keep your rotor and put new brake pads on. That is a very acceptable option, and that's what I do about 80% of the time. Again, as long as the rotor is above the minimum threshold, because if it's not going to be safe to drive. So it's okay to put new pads on your old rotor if it's smooth like this you can see right here. As long as it's a semi-smooth surface, you can go ahead and put the new brake pads on. It's really fine. So those are the three options that you have: replacing, resurfacing, or just keeping your old one. And again, most of the time, most people are just fine keeping their old rotor and putting new pads on top of their old rotor. One more thing I almost forgot to is rotors that cause vibration, they're safe to drive. It's just an uncomfortable thing. The unsafe thing is the below the minimum thickness, but rotors that cause vibration are safe to drive. And also, this minimum thickness number, if I don't tell you exactly what the number is here in just a second, you can find it at your parts store. They'll give you a discard thickness number on your rotor, so keep that in mind too. Okay guys, and the minimum thickness measurement number for this rotor is going to be 1.102, and I'm actually not sure if that's correct, but that's the first Google result I found for it. So it's just kind of a good guesstimate. So remember, you can find out what the exact measurement is going to be at your parts store. Now this one's measuring at 1.175, so I'm guessing that minimum thickness number is going to be correct. And basically, these rotors, if he wanted to keep them, he'd probably be alright. I know one of them's torn up though, so we're probably going to want to replace it instead of resurface it. So I'll show you how to go ahead and replace these rotors. And again, 1.102, I believe the first number I said, that's the most accurate one, but again, that's a guesstimate. Make sure you ask your parts store or just do some more in-depth searching on Google there for the minimum thickness rotor. Also, sometimes they stamp them on the outsides here or somewhere on the rotor, so you can check that as well. So now I'll show you how to remove this rotor and put it back on if you were going to do that. Okay guys, so the next things we got going on here is we got the 2 bolts we got to remove in order to get this caliper bracket off, and they're 18mm bolts. I'm not actually going to be able to show you, but I will show you. The first one's sitting right back there where you see my finger, my middle finger. I'll use my point finger. It's sitting right back there, and then the other one is sitting right back there. So our 2 bolts are going to be sitting kind of like right there. So go ahead and get you an 18mm socket and a big ratchet. I'm going to go ahead and get them on here, and we're going to break our bolts loose, and then we'll go ahead and remove this bracket. Okay guys, and these 2 bolts are pretty serious about being fastened on there. So what I've done is I've situated my large ratchet in such a way to where it's going lefty-loosey, and I just basically took my foot and I was able to push down, and that's how I was able to break the bottom one loose. You can do something similar for the top bolt as well, and then of course it's going to be vice versa for the other side there. So you may have to get creative, use a big ratchet, because they may be fastened on there pretty tightly just like mine. So next I'll show you, I'm just going to zip those 2 bolts out and I'll show you removing the bracket. Okay guys, so once you get both those loose, I'm going to go ahead and zip these off. We got the top one. And we got our bottom one there as well. So we'll just go ahead and take our bracket off. We'll just set them down right here. And that's what our 2 bolts look like. They'll be sitting back there, something like that. And then we can just pull this rotor here right off. Like so. Oh, and it's got the inside drum brakes. That's pretty neat. So I'll just go ahead and set this guy down, and that's pretty much all there is to removing your rotor here. We do have the inside drum brakes, and we can also replace the shoes there as well. And other than that, most of the time you'll just be replacing the rotor here. So I'll show you how to get that new rotor on and how to get your pads back on. Okay guys, so now we'll go ahead and take that new rotor and we'll just set them back here on our wheel hub assembly here. And it's also not a bad idea to go ahead and just kind of spray this down with brake cleaner, take you a blue rag, wipe it down after you spray it down, and we're going to go ahead and push them back on there. And that's actually fitting pretty snug, because a lot of times you may want to adjust those drum shoes right there. And basically guys, I want to mention those 2. The drum shoes are primarily used for your emergency brake or your rear brakes there. So when you do most of your applying, what's going on is we got the 2 pistons off of that caliper. It's going to be compressing those disc brake pads. So that's the main thing you're going to be changing most of the time. You really don't need to worry about that shoes too much. And so long as you can apply your e-brake and have this thing still catch, then you don't have too much to worry about. I'll just kind of look here for you real quickly and see if I can kind of explain how this works. And let's see, it looks like right there is going to be your self-adjuster, and basically you're going to spin that either left or right. And I'm looking, it looks like we may have a holder right there as well. So basically you'd spin that thing left or right, you figure that out, and when they're expanded, that's going to be the tightening. And you're going to want to tighten them generally when you put your new rotor / drum on, because the drum wears away from the inside, so the old one's going to have a larger inside, so the newer one's going to have a closer inside. And I actually told you that the right way, that you're actually going to want to bring them in for the newer one, because you're putting a smaller hole over a bigger thing here, which is why it fits pretty well. So it's actually not a bad thing that this fits real well. It fits snug, and I guess it wasn't fitting as well before. So let's see. So like I said, when I put that guy in there right there, it seems like it's fitting pretty snug, so that's not bad. And I'm guessing if it happened for me, it's going to be a common thing, most likely. So the next thing you'll do is we'll take our little piece right here, and he fits back on here like so. So I'm gonna take this guy, I'm gonna go ahead and start my